Do you remember that one time you told me that like a Nickelback video changed your life? Because in the Nickelback video, sorry, this is really embarrassing for you, it was a video where there was like a clock above his head, right? And it was the amount of time he had to die. If they put that above King Ezekiel, it would still be less obvious than what they're doing with this fucking episode so far.
Yeah. Because The Walking Dead is airing every week, we will be doing deep dives. I am, of course, DJ Miles, and with me is my co-host, Christian. Christian, how are you doing, sir?
What's going on, man? Ready to talk some zombies. What about you?
Me and Christian are here to give you guys the latest with everything in regards to TV news. And there's a lot of people who are supporting us, and all you guys supporting us right now, thank you. All of you guys are amazing early on right now. Just supporting what we do is truly fascinating. And there's some of you, you'll just have to warm up to with me and Christian. I understand that. And, then there's some of you, you just absolutely hate us. Now, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about The Walking Dead. Christian, let me just go ahead and say before we start talking about episode 2 of season 9 titled The Bridge, man, Rick started this great dialogue with Negan, and I'm already missing him. I'm just like already knowing however they get rid of Rick this season. I'm kind of scared. How do you feel about this?
Well, I'm scared specifically if we're talking about like what it means for the show, because it seems like for better or for worse, Rick is the one person every community is listening to, right? Like they may be bitching and moaning about it, but in the end, they're all kind of like adhering to what he says. So what happens when he's gone? What glue is going to hold the new society together? Because it's already like a tenuous fucking thing to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's what's worrisome for me is just like without this guy, who's the one person people actually respect, holding it all together, like civilization's going to crumble all over again. Didn't you get that feeling?
No, absolutely. I did. And just seeing Rick again talking in the beginning, we end up finding out later that 35 days when he's talking to Negan is, and correct me if I'm wrong, was 35 days after the events of what Maggie did with Gregory, correct? So he just ends up telling Negan, like, yeah, everything is fine. We're doing well. The community's coming together. And we see bits and examples of that. So one of the first things, we see Rick as he's telling everyone how amazing, life is, or to Negan anyway, which, by the way, I forgot to say, I love the intro. Didn't you say that too?
What, the new credits? Yeah, the new credits are like wonderful, dude. I don't know why. And again, it's like, say what you want about that show, but the title sequences have always really been on point, man.
Well, one of the opening shots I have here is with King Ezekiel and Carol. And again, as if we didn't get enough of the foreshadowing to come, we get more of that reinforced with King Ezekiel telling Carol, hey, listen, I know what you're saying, sweetheart. We're going to take it one step at a time. I'm not saying this is happily ever after, but I'm appreciating the small moments we have together because, God forbid, something might happen to me. So just in case, I just want to remind all the audience viewers, let's enjoy me as much as we can, How do you feel about King Ezekiel just kind of rubbing it in for everyone?
Do you remember that one time you told me that like a Nickelback video changed your life? Because in the Nickelback video, sorry, this is really embarrassing for you, it was a video where there was like a clock above his head, right? And it was the amount of time he had to die. If they put that above King Ezekiel, it would still be less obvious than what they're doing with this fucking episode so far.
Yeah. And then the next thing we see after that whole appreciating the small amounts of love is Rick talking with Eugene about the supplies. So we end up finding out now that although Rick said early on in the episode that, hey, everyone's coming together, we're coming together, we do see the bits and pieces and the cracks coming together of like, well, the Saviors aren't really about helping out with the bridge. We see more of them kind of just slowly go out in the back. The people on Hilltop, they're still a little hesitant in terms of sharing the supply with everyone because, hey, they need that bridge fixed. So what are we going to do with that? And then one of the scenes we see after that is everything with the conversation of Maggie and Michonne talking. And now they're disagreeing while Jesus is kind of in the background like, yeah, I'm just going to kind of let these two people, butt it out. But here's the thing I'm getting from this conversation or the scene in the episode, right? I'm still kind of on board with Maggie for the most part in terms of how she's running stuff, right? And we see the conversation a little later on in the episode about Maggie telling Michonne, I don't disagree or I don't regret doing what I did with Gregory. He fucked up, and hey, with the father who almost ended up killing me, yeah, he was a drunk, he was an alcoholic, and who's a drunken alcoholic, Christian? My father, Herschel, and he learned from that mistake. But Michonne, let this be known, I don't regret what I did with Gregory. How do you feel about the scene?
I mean, I think it was honestly pretty powerful, dude. And I think that kind of drawing back to her own personal history as to why that she would be able to get over something as fucking terrible as what happened last week is a really good organic step within it to kind of make it make sense within the character. The thing I really liked about that in general, though, is just Michonne's presence, right? Like, I was thinking about this in a weird way where it's like, Rick is new George Washington. Like, stay with me, right? Like, this is, before like America got all together, that it was like a bunch of people who had to just like go and be like, yo, man, maybe we should like be a society. And then the other states being like, nah, we're cool on our own, and this is like a zombie states of America. Like, Michonne is out being like an ambassador, like a dreadlocked Ben Franklin, trying to like coerce everyone into buying into the system, like the together we're strong, divided we're not sort of thing. And I just really like that they're playing with that, because it like you can have a town be safe, right? But that's not civilization. Civilization or societies working together, like to build towards a greater good. And so that's why I like that the bridge is this metaphor for the entire show anyway, right? Like, it's this common goal that all three camps are going to benefit from. Even world building, they had that like tree with all the signs, that was like this way to Hilltop, this way to Alexandria. You know what I'm talking about? Like the little totem pole thing. Mm-hmm. And it just shows you that like they're trying to build towards this thing, but again, the zombies are second nature right now. Like, it is just about trying to maintain the peace, but beyond that, get people to buy into like a great society. And right now, people are split on it.
For sure. And that leads me to the next point where now we see into the episode as it continues, the confrontation Daryl ends up having with one of the Saviors, because we see someone from Ezekiel's group ends up, the kid who ends up giving water to one of the Saviors. The guy is like, nah, screw that. I'm more thirsty. He pushes the kid aside. And then I love how the kid is like, I'm not taking shit from you, dude. He hits him with the leg or he hits him with the stick. He makes the Savior guy falls down. The guy gets angry and dude, he's about to attack a kid. He's like, what? And then Daryl.
In that guy's defense, that kid was like the Ollie of the Walking Dead universe. As much as I hate that fucker from Game of Thrones, like this kid was almost equally annoying. You didn't agree with that?
Oh no, for sure. But I also like he wasn't going to take shit from the guy, from the Savior. I think one of the problems that we see everyone from the Saviors, and we find out later on in the episode, is that the Saviors, more or less, they're the muscle of the group, of all three, civilizations, right? So, I don't know. I love how the kid just is like, I don't care if you're the muscle. I'm telling you, this is all the water you're getting, piss off. So, hey, I was all about that scene, and then it just
but then it snowballs into this giant brawl, right? We get Daryl and him fighting, and it's not even really about them fighting so much as it's like that rift between the original people and the Saviors, right? Mm-hmm. And that rift keeps fucking growing. Like after the scene, Rick shows up and he breaks everything up, and that's all kosher. But this is like, I think the very next scene is a scene between Daryl and Rick where he's just like, we're all on the same side, and Daryl's like, are we? Like, you tell me. And he's just like, I've been trying to tell you, but you ain't listening, Rick. You know what I mean? And it's really hard to see them be adversarial towards one another because we've seen them for 8 years really been on the same page. But like Daryl and Rick are far apart, man. Like, and I'm not sure if it's reconcilable right now.
No, absolutely. And that's kind of the scary part. Again, now we're seeing more pockets in this episode. After that confrontation with Daryl and the member of the Savior here, we, Rick is like, hey, let's move ahead. Let's figure this shit out. Like, I'm done with squabbling this stuff. Hey, everyone, we're together. We got to start this new civilization. We got to like just kind of be united on all fronts. It's not like we should never fight. But again, even with something as peaceful as that, and Negan will bring it on much later on towards the end of the episode, that's not always the case. And even no matter how good some things are, people will always tend to agree to disagree on things, which brings it back later on in the episode. Now the next scene we see is Tammy, right? Ken's mother, who ends up talking with Jesus and just saying, hey, I want to see my husband. I don't agree with what Maggie did. And, there's points, and before the context, I didn't know that it's been 35 days since the incident where I'm like, ooh, yeah, Maggie, you probably just should have let Tammy see her husband for a while, but Jesus is like, sorry, I can't let you through. And then we get the confrontation of Michonne and Jesus talking about like, hey, listen, I know you vouched for Maggie, but you don't think she's going a bit too hardcore with her decisions, right? And again, now we see Michonne not purposely doing it, but also now adding more pockets of separation of like, well, who makes this call on, who lives and who dies, and, something about Tammy even seeing her husband.
You and I, the audience, we know that she's leaving. So they have to be building towards something. And again, I wish we lived in a world where we didn't have all these fucking spoilers, right? Because if we could go in not knowing all the behind the scenes stuff, knowing that this actor signed a deal to be on this show, it would be a lot better.
Now, following those scenes, we see now Maggie confronting Ken's father. And then we get that conversation about like, yeah, I used to be an alcoholic. And then I don't remember when my son was born, all this stuff. But to be honest with you, I mean, if Ken did have a South Park death, trying to save a horse after the whole event of the Negan stuff, I don't know. but anyway, jokes aside, yeah, we see now Maggie end up talking to Ken's father. And then again, Maggie even asked the father, do you think I did the right decision by letting you live and letting Gregory die? And what does he say, Christian? No. Again, I'm totally on board with that decision. So following after the events of that, we get Tara ends up hitting up Rick, and it's like, hey, Mother Goose, we got to do this thing about zombies or the hordes, moving them from one scene onto the next. We have to separate them to avoid them from the bridge being built, right? And now, Christian, we end up seeing this scene where things that go wrong obviously has to go wrong, because up until this point in the episode, 20 minutes in, we didn't even get a single zombie in the episode. And of course, what is The Walking Dead without zombies? So of course, whatever plan is supposed to go smoothly goes awire. And then now we see Daryl ends up killing zombies, which I do love how one of the guys right here pulling up the log, right? It's like, zombies, we gotta go. They've been probably they've been on this project pretty much all day together. And I understand the horde is coming, but you've been working all day with this dude. You weren't going to check just for the 2 seconds. Hey, dude, the horde is coming. Get the hell out of here while I drop this log. No, we have to have another South Park moment. And what ends up happening? The log ends up falling on this guy's arm. And then, of course, we see Daryl and then Rick and everyone else saving up the day. And yeah, let's go ahead and just break down the scene.
I want to give some credit where credit's due. That fucking set piece was actually pretty awesome, dude. Because, Rick has his Indiana Jones moment, right? And shoots a goddamn rope from a couple whatever yards away. And the logs go flying. And you just see the logs like leveling zombies. I liked all of that, man, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like that was kind of a cool zombie kill thing. Now, the direct implication is that Aaron gets his arm caught under one of the logs, and they're going to have to amputate it. And Enid is going to be the one who's going to amputate it, which, by the way, we did a shit job. But that's one of the things I really liked about this episode is they're showing like little progress, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're minded enough to know that they need other medical people in different settlements, right? Mm-hmm. So they have Ed kind of training under Sadiq is going to be this medical person, not a doctor per se, right? But like someone who's going to be in charge of trying to heal people. And she has to amputate this arm basically day one on the job, right? Because they make Sadiq go back to the main thing. Like, how fucked up is that? Your first day on the job, you got to take an arm off, man.
Well, that's crazy. I thought we were actually going to get moments in the episode because we see her just slowly learning, right? That she doesn't know how to do this stuff. And I thought, when you go into the extreme of like, whoa, we got to cauterize the arm because, it's pretty much done. I mean, that scene was actually kind of hard to digest. They actually did a really good job, and tell me how you felt about it. But I thought it was amazing how Daryl's like, so the painkillers aren't going to do nothing? No. He's not even going to feel it. Fuck, dude.
No, it was a good scene because they didn't let you breathe for a second. And that's why I even like the scene immediately after that, because it follows Daryl like immediately after the knife. We have a shot of the knife cutting through the arm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, he's now our conduit, man. He's out of breath. Everything's stuffy for him. What's the first thing he goes is to try to find out who fucked up, right? Who didn't get their alarm going in time to make sure the horde didn't come towards them. And of course, it's that fucking water douchebag, Justin, right? That savior from earlier who got knocked out by Walking Dead Ollie, that guy. Mm-hmm. And so it drives Daryl crazy and he beats the shit out of him again. They have another giant fight, Really effective scene, again, because they just don't let you breathe, man. Like from the moment that Aaron has to get his arm cut off to after this fight, it's just like one continuous thing. Carol ends up breaking it up because Carol, of course, has some special powers over Daryl. Yeah. But still, Daryl is over this savior shit. He is not about it anymore, and they couldn't be further apart.
While all that craziness was happening, we end up finding out again more saviors. They're just leaving, man. They're not about this stuff. They just don't care. And again, just more pockets of separation of everyone slowly leaving. But I will say this, although, this guy wasn't really about helping people out earlier, I really believe his dumbass just didn't really charge the walkie. I don't think he was doing it out of malicious intent or anything like that. Did you feel the same way? Or did you think he really was trying to just sabotage people as that's what you get for messing with our group?
No, I think it's the same thing. I think the logical answer is just that it wasn't charged, right? But I think Daryl and Maggie both have blind spots where the saviors are concerned. Mm-hmm. So for them, the excuses that may be okay for someone else that they've known for the whole time is not going to fly because fuck them. Another subplot where the saviors who were supposed to go bring, fuel over to Hilltop never made it, and none of the saviors came back home, so they're missing. So there's a big thing going on with all the saviors. Morale isn't high, and they're leaving. And then the ones who didn't voluntarily leave are being kicked out by Rick. So it's not a good look right now, man.
Absolutely. And here's one of the things I wanted to ask you. So you think people leaving left and right or aren't making the trips that they have to, is this the beginning of the Whisperers that you and I have known in the comics? Or do you think this really is the people just saying, nah, we just don't want to deal with this right now? That's Hilltop's problem. This is Alexandria's problem. This is the Sanctuary's problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a really good question, man, to be honest, just because we don't know necessarily where it's going overall. At the end of the episode, fucking frat boy Justin, the asshole savior, he's leaving, right? Because he told Rick he was going to. And they cut to a POV shot, which, by the way, is the most annoying thing in the world. The last time they did the POV shot was the season 6 finale where ooh, who did they kill? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So nauseated by it immediately. But they do a POV and this guy, Justin, is freaked out by someone who emerges out of the woods, but then he puts his guard down because he recognizes the assailant, right? Mm-hmm. And he's just like, hey, man, you shouldn't be doing that. And then he gets attacked and it cuts to black. Yeah. So it's one of those things where whatever is happening, I don't think it could just straight be Whispers, right? Because they have to know, Justin would have to know who that person was in order to recognize him and put his let his guard down, right?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And that's the thing. And we pretty much still end the episode. And, we can go ahead and wrap this up now, where Rick is painting this beautiful picture to Negan, right? That, hey, everyone is living happily ever after. And yeah, there's definitely problems happening. But you know what? We are together. We can get through this. And your way of leadership, Negan, was not the way to go. Everyone's living happily ever after. We get our boy, Father Gabriel, who's about to get laid. And I love the scene where he's talking to the woman. It's like, Catholic, fuck that. I ain't Catholic. I can get laid.
No, that was a nice touch for sure. Although, Gabe, she's a literal garbage person, okay? She was hanging out in a garbage dump all of the last 2 seasons. You can do better, Gabe. I know you're half blind and shit, but goddamn, she's a garbage person, dude.
But I do love now that this is the first beginning of us seeing Negan actually in the season with, the long beard, a little bit of longer hair, right? Like, hey, and I love what he ends up telling him, right? What you said in the beginning of the episode. It's like, hey, Rick, thanks for painting this beautiful picture. I mean, everything that you're doing, it's eventually going to be for me because this is what is destined to happen, more or less, right? That no matter how good you may think it is, it's always going to revert back to how I ran things. So pretty powerful stuff.
And again, we know Andrew Lincoln's leaving, dude. So that's what makes that possibility even more exciting because like Jeffrey Dean Morgan may very well have to somehow lead the show going forward.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And with that said, I think that's pretty much it. Was there any last second thoughts, something we missed out, Christian?
No, I mean, I just want to say overall, it wasn't the most exciting episode in the world, but it was a table setting episode, right? Like what they wanted to do was show you some more of the conflicts that are going to drive the season going forward. We got to catch up with our boy Negan. We got a cool zombie set piece. Like there were things to like about it. Obviously I don't think it was nearly as good as last week's episode. And that's saying something because last week's episode was half great and half really bad. But, I'm still into it, man. They're still at least getting the stories and the motivations from within the stories. You know what I mean? Like people aren't acting stupid for the sake of acting stupid yet. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
It's a little bit slow. This was like the chess piece episode, right? Nothing too crazy. And, a lot of it, hey, we had to have that zombie moment 20 minutes into the episode because, what are we going to do? Sitting down watching the bridge get constructed and built together peacefully with no, cause of conflict.
That would be a bold
like
episode. Nothing fucking happens the entire time. It's just like people are having lunch together. They're having wine. It's awesome. Nothing bad happens.
Yeah,
I would watch that episode. They deserve one victory, Miles. Just one goddamn day where there's no zombies. They don't have to deal with anything.